So when I go to the House floor to debate something not nearly as consequential as what we're talking about here today, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Bilirakis for any statements and questions he may have, and when he is done, he can close this hearing.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
All right. Again, let me just say to the panelists, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, I appreciate your work and your dedication to this, and we will stay in touch. So, Mr. Bilirakis.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. We've had, let me shut this off. But we've had several hearings at once, quite a few conflicts, but this is so very important. A sincere thank you again to the co-chairs, Mr. McGovern and my good friend Chris Smith, for hosting the hearing today. What's happening in Sudan today is an unmitigated humanitarian crisis. Unfortunately, it's a disaster, unfortunately. Hopefully, this hearing will amplify the Sudanese plight and be a call to action for the American public, our colleagues on the Hill, and the international community. I had the privilege of traveling to Sudan in the spring of 2019 and absolutely fell in love with the Sudanese people. The timing of my trip could not have been more perfect. The government was reacting violently to peaceful protests. And in Khartoum, I knew as one of the first elected officials from the U.S. to visit Sudan in a long time, I could make somewhat of an impact. During this trip, I had the good fortune of meeting Dr. Irfan, who now has become a dear friend and a close advisor on all issues related to Sudan. In addition to meeting with the Bashir government officials for the purpose of demanding the release of a Sudanese American who was wrongfully jailed for his participation in peaceful protests, with the help of Dr. Irfan and the U.S. DCM, I was able to meet with numerous opposition leaders, but not Bashir, obviously, all of these leaders were demanding comprehensive human rights reforms in Sudan. Not a month later, President al-Bashir was removed from power, and the TMC was created as a transitional power. While the situation in Sudan was looking significantly more promising since my initial visit, I warned that there were still entrenched elements in the military created by the Bashir regime, which would continue to be a destabilizing presence. We can see now that our worst nightmares came true, unfortunately, with the threat of widespread famine affecting tens of millions and a full-blown genocidal campaign on the horizon unless the United States and the international community act. We need to end this war and protect the innocent. Dr. Irfan, what can the United States and the international community do to pressure the two parties into a ceasefire and secure safe haven for the displaced people while the war continues?
Thank you, Congressman Bilirakis, for your continuing advocacy for Sudan and Sudan issues. I really appreciate all what you have done since the revolution back in 2019 upon your visit and afterwards, keeping Sudan in the middle of your agenda all the time and putting some of your time to meet with Sudanese people like myself and discussing what can we do in the future. I just want to remind you that the resolution that you put back in 2019 in the summer, if I remember correctly, with Congressman Dan Kildee, Resolution 432, if I remember correctly, supporting the revolution in Sudan and demanding all the forces that was fighting the army at that time and the militia and others to abide to what the Sudanese civilian movement was doing the revolution for and building a democratic, very good country that would be for all Sudanese people. That was a dream. This is what we needed. but that particular resolution has helped the revolution in Sudan, and the revolution came back after some massacre happened during the end of Ramadan back in 2019, unfortunately. So I'm putting all those statements here because the U.S. has a lot to offer. The U.S. Can pressurize those two factions that are fighting right now. They are already in Jeddah. I think with more pressure, diplomatic and other pressures, the U.S. can put, and together the international community under the leadership of the United States can put an end to this war. And I think putting an end of this war is a must happen and should be in the agenda for the entire international community. This is unprecedented, catastrophic humanitarian that could be even worse and worse if we don't put that effort from today.
And also, we're not, the focus, the media attention has not been on this particular issue. So I encourage the media to put a microscope over this issue and cover it, because great people, these are wonderful people, salt of the earth, and it's terrible. It's just awful what they're going through, and I feel for them. So, Dr. Afan, again, do you believe the United States can work with Sudanese Americans in the diaspora to coordinate humanitarian efforts, or even as part of a Sudan crisis task force?
Yes, and I think this would be a great opportunity for all Sudanese people that you have met with Congressman before, and everyone. There is a lot of Sudanese people who have been so integrated to the U.S. community here. They have been contributing to the welfare of the United States, and everybody is looking forward right now to stop this war, to work under some guidance, some coalition, some consortium kind of work. Again, I'm talking about a humanitarian crisis that is really unprecedented. So no matter how good we are on what we have done before, because during the revolution, the Sudanese diaspora really did a very good job in supporting that revolution and made it to continue. Again, during the pandemic, there was a huge international global coalition and group for Sudanese people, not only in the US, but globally, that helped the country to go through the COVID-19 pandemic. At this point, I think all Sudanese people are still in shock, and the situation is much larger than a small group of people who can handle it. So we're really appealing for the international community at large, and the US in particular, to help us get organized, stop this war, and look for a better future for Sudan.
I know you're willing, your community, it's a fantastic community, and I'm very familiar with them, and I know they're willing and able, but they need partners. Do you believe both factions are using food as a weapon in the war?
Yes, I do. And I think my colleagues who are much more experienced, they are in the field doing this work, all the data, the information that are coming from those big organizations, as well as small local organizations. We work with grassroots organizations that are trying to even have small kitchens in areas, cooking food. Unfortunately, when you look at people dying in their houses right now, people who were not able to flee the country in different areas, and the war zone is expanding from one city to another, from one state to another. And just imagine those people are being displaced, going from one place to the other. I have family members who have been affected by that, and two others, and millions of people. So this is really a situation where it's very large situation that we really need some help to salvage those lives.
How can we prevent this from happening without causing greater harm to the starving people? In other words, the food is being used as a weapon. How can we prevent this from happening?
I think the special envoy for Sudan, Mr. Tom Prelius, 3 days ago, he tweeted, particularly on the 19th, and he was demanding the two factions to stop and step back from fighting in El Fasher in particular and open corridors for pathways for humanitarian aid throughout the country. Not only in Al Fasher, which is facing a catastrophic situation as we are talking right now, but other areas are being equally affected in different regions of Sudan. So by putting that pressure from the US government to open those corridors and pathways for the aid is the only way that we can help those lives to be salvaged at this point.
Okay. What role can the Sudanese doctors, either immigrants and then also maybe first generation Sudanese Americans of Sudanese descent, what role can they play? They have played a major role in the past. I'm familiar with that. But what role can they play to help these wonderful people?
Yes, and this is a very important area that we have more than one organization that groups the Sudanese doctors and other allied healthcare professions in the US here, Sudanese Physician Association and Sudanese Medical Association as well. They have been really doing some work in Sudan, very significant work. Some of them are the only ones who are running work. They have been working with Doctors Without Borders. We have been working with other organizations in the field, moving from one city when there is no security to try to establish some healthcare work in other areas. I think what we need at this point is trying to unify efforts, trying to bring all those people together, because if we augment and if we work together, I think the outcome can be much better. With the very insecure situation in Sudan, we're going to depend, as what's happening right now, on volunteer Sudanese who are in the field. There are still some doctors in Sudan who are decided to stay in the war zone and still helping people back in their own localities, in their own cities. And if we can just make their efforts to be recognized and make sure that their safety to come first and be able to supply them with all what they need to help helping people back, that would be really very important. So a good coalition of all Sudanese doctors in the United States, among other Sudanese in different professions, will be of.
Okay. Well, thank you very much,